Welcome to the Modern Hippie podcast, where we'll be exploring all of my favorite boundary-pushing people and topics surrounding consciousness, psychedelics, mental performance, functional medicine, living in alignment, and so much more. I'm your host, Barrett Perlman, a former pro wakeboarder turned body worker, energy healer, and well, a modern hippie. And I'm so glad you're here. I am here today with Bishop Reid, and I am so excited to introduce you because I met you in Guatemala a year ago, where we are right now. Yeah. We are in what they call Lago de Atitlan, Lake Atitlan in Guatemala, and you are a breathwork facilitator. Mm-hmm. Is that all that you do, or am I describing that properly?
Yeah, breathwork and somatic facilitator.
What's the difference?
So breathwork is obviously a type of a modality that we use to connect with our body, to connect with different layers of the subconscious. Somatic is, it's really, in Greek terms, most people know somatic as the body. But I really like we love to, in Western, civilization, we think of the mind and the body, but I really like to think about it, and this training I'm actually taking right now, it's called Trauma and Somatics, is about our living wholeness. And so when I say somatic facilitator, I also guide people deeper into their wholeness, their body, so their emotional body, their physical body, their mental body, and their spiritual body.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
that's quite a role to play in someone's life.
Yeah.
What a brilliant thing to facilitate.
Yeah.
So how did you get here? We're in Lake Atitlan right now. I think I said that already. I mean, if you're watching, which hopefully this turns into a video, but the mountains are in the background, this volcano. I actually have it. I love it so much. I got it tattooed on me.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Thank you. Rolando did it, who's Maya, my healer here. It's her husband. And he's also a brilliant shaman and tattoo artist. And so this place is very special to me.
Yeah.
How did you find your way here?
I found my way because a good friend of mine, we lived together in a community in Brazil for about 1.5 years. And she was here. She has a cacao company here called Cacao Source. And she invited me here, I want to say midway through COVID, but how do we even measure that anymore?
Yeah, because it would have been April of 2021 that I met you.
Yeah, so I got here November 2020.
Oh boy.
And was just going to visit for a couple months, and then, as you can imagine, really fell in love with the place. And, a lot of people that come here, things move in a different way here. You just move through processes that you didn't even know were coming. And I like to feel like the volcanic lake that we're sitting in right now, it holds you. And I'm sure you've felt this too. You were just saying every time you come here, it's things move that don't have the place and the space to move elsewhere in the outside world. Absolutely.
This is my 4th year here.
Yeah.
I started coming in 2018. Every year I come just a year and a month later, a year and 2 months later. But this is my one non-negotiable every year. And
so good.
Even coming from my 4th time, every trip is so different. Each year I shed something that I didn't fully understand I needed to shed, and I ascend I feel like I keep ascending levels spiritually. I don't know how many levels there are, but I'm grateful that there's more and there's more. Infinite. And there's more. Because I did show up this year being I don't know how you're going to top last year. I have no idea. Last year was so impactful. But I also hold no expectations because I simply desire to release what no longer serves me and to gain the knowledge for what I need to know.
Yep.
So that's so cool that you ended up here. And now you're running my favorite spot temporarily.
Yeah.
Called the Hermitage, which is the retreat center that I've been posting about, if any of you follow me on Instagram.
Solitary and dark room retreat center that is that we're here right now.
And what is the dark room?
Yeah, the dark room. Have you done the dark room yet?
I've spent a day in the dark room.
A day, okay. Yeah, the dark room is basically is kind of the essence of this place. It's we have 2 caves here, and yeah, it's exactly how it sounds. It's completely pitch black in there, and people come there to, you know, darkness is an ancient medicine that people would go into, tribes would go into to connect with spirit, to connect with God. It's treated as almost like a plant medicine, as darkness. And yeah, you go in, some people go in for, like you said, a day, couple days, couple weeks. We have one guy in there right now for 49 days.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, people say that they've like wanted to do this their entire life. And it's a special place, a special space to allow yourself to just sit in darkness for a certain amount of time that you're feeling called to.
Have you done the darkness?
I have. I did it for 3 days, 4 nights, and it was
Ooh.
It was actually after a breathwork training I did here in Atitlan, and it was so, ironically, it was so filled with light, like truly. And I don't just say like, oh, it was so light, like really, I felt the most light I've ever felt in my entire life in that space. I just felt, you know, the darkness is almost like that's the womb of all creation too. I mean, everything which we came, I don't know what everyone believes, but the space of nothingness, like that's where things can be born from. And I just felt like I was being held in this womb of creation. Yeah.
I get it.
Yeah.
I obviously didn't spend like days and nights there, but the time I did spend, I remember being so blown away at how much love I felt in the darkness.
Yeah.
That was sincerely just did my head in. Like, I did not expect that.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, I'm going to confront some demons for sure. And instead I was confronted just with myself. And I guess sometimes I think I have being an only child to thank for having spent so much time alone. But for me, there was so much play in the darkness. I've even gone and gotten some dark blackout shades and stuff to, what do you call those? Eye band.
Yeah, like an eye mask.
Yes, an eye mask, to block out all the light, to dabble in that space sometimes, because that was so cool.
Yeah. And what's incredible is what happens to your nervous system and the melatonin in your body after a certain amount of time. Like, I thought I knew how to be relaxed, but being in that space where you know nobody's coming in, you don't have your phone, like there's nothing for you to do but just be in there. Like, my nervous system went to a whole new level of relaxation.
Oh, that's so beautiful.
Yeah, and that's when we can truly heal, right? Like when our body is feeling relaxed and safe enough to move through those things.
And what are the solo retreats that happen here?
Yeah, so that's what you're on right now, right?
Yeah.
Solitary retreat.
Yeah,
Ish.
I feel like I've been here enough times for me to really call it. It used to be a silent retreat, right? And then the silence last year finally got removed, according to Severin, who runs the place. So that was a relief, and I like made my first friend here, and I was so excited because I'd never made a friend here before. But yeah, I guess it's kind of solitary. Yeah,
so most people come here for silence. And also, we have morning practice every morning from 6:30 to 8:30. And we start out in silence and end in silence, but it's a lot of dynamic meditation. A lot of breath work, a lot of maybe mantra singing, voice activation, movement, even dance. And I mean, you can probably feel it too. I think you came to this morning's practice of just this combination of these different modalities of to become more intimate with our body, to become more embodied, because so many of us are sitting in silence in meditation, if we do have a practice like that, and are sitting with so much tension and trauma. And the reason why I felt so called to somatics, to the work of integrating our living wholeness, is because we are already out there holding and being quiet and repressing and suppressing. And so I find that there's this beautiful, and Severin felt there's this beautiful combination and complementary medicine of silence and the space to really go within and to move through stuff. Yeah. To dance, to like the journey that we just had an hour ago, like to move through the emotional body in ways that you're typically, quote unquote, not allowed to in day-to-day life, that actually enhances the depth of meditation and stillness you're able to go in when you give yourself space to move through things.
It's also going to be fireworks on the lake. Those are not gunshots, by the way.
Bombas.
Yeah, it's beautiful to hear you say that. One of my best friends, Leah, who will be on this podcast, she's started to become one of my partners in ceremony, and her big thing is dance. Yes. Movement through that. And it's so powerful what we're not traditionally allowed to release, the ways we're not traditionally allowed to move. I mean, doing something like yoga is great, sure. Doing something like a sport is great, sure. You're moving. That's you're ahead of most people. However, to be allowed to move and to flow in any which way you desire is a completely different practice. Fantastic for the body for getting that stuff out.
It's such medicine.
So who introduced you to breathwork and somatics?
So I feel like Wim Hof brings a lot of people to breathwork.
Mm-hmm.
I was in my corporate job back in North Carolina, and they would sometimes do some Wim Hof practices at company retreats and that kind of thing. And immediately it was like, whoa, I haven't felt this level of stillness in my mind. And I've always been a very analytical, heady person. And so that kind of got me intrigued. But it wasn't until I had a plant medicine ceremony when I was living in Brazil, when I was diagnosed with thyroid cancer. And I went to a plant medicine ceremony after I had taken the cancer out, after I had gone back to the US, had surgery. Great, like 6-week process. Flew back to Brazil. I was like, okay, now that's out, now that's done. Back to my life.
Right.
I sat with ayahuasca in Brazil, and yeah, that could be a whole other podcast, but essentially...
No, please tell me.
Essentially, I had a really strong, direct, firm, but loving conversation with something inside of my body. I mean, it was a very clear voice that was not coming from me, but it was. Mm-hmm. And it was just screaming at me, like, you're not listening to me, you're not listening to me, you're not listening to me, just screaming at me. And I was like, I don't get it. And I just started crying and sobbing, and I was like, okay, you just kind of like surrender, like I'm listening.
Was this your first experience with plant medicine?
This was my 5th time sitting with ayahuasca, and it was my most powerful one. Mm-hmm. Sometimes they always say, the shamans say, like, sometimes it takes Americans a few, because we have such a hard time letting go.
I can see that.
So yeah, and I basically the rest of the journey I had this very intimate conversation with my body and some of the cells and the cancer cells that were still in my body, and it was like, you can't just get rid of me like that. You haven't even solved the issue here, like the root. And yeah, and I realized a lot in that journey. And then at the end, though, I have never felt such a profound sense of trust in my body before. Like, I'm the stereotypical, like, always looking outside for the answers. I mean, most of us do that. Mm-hmm. But they're like, okay, I'm going to follow this diet, and I'm going to do this, and I'm looking at this guru, or I'm following this person, like, always pedestalizing people. That was, like, I did that all the time. And, yeah, I had never felt such a profound sense of trust in my body. And I knew it was going to, like, I was very aware that was the medicine helping me realize that, right? Mm-hmm. And so I asked ayahuasca, I was like, how can I stay connected to this in the world, right, not on medicine?
Right. We're not always in Brazil in the Amazon.
Exactly. And I was like, how can I carry this with me? And immediately it was breath.
Interesting.
Breath. And I was like, oh, okay. And then also the phrase came, and I don't consider myself religious. And at that point I was questioning a lot of things around God and whatnot, but the phrase came to me over and over again: be still and know that I am God, be still and know that I am God. And so those two things really have stuck with me over the last years. And I didn't really understand when it mentioned breath I didn't really fully understand what that meant until about a year and a half later. And that's when I started getting into these kinds of the conscious connected breath work and this kind of breath journeying and what can happen in these. And when I had my first breath journey, it was I would say equally as powerful as that plant medicine journey that I had in Brazil.
How wonderful.
And it's like, like you said, we don't have to be in these crazy countries sitting with a shaman in the Amazon forest to feel connected to ourselves. And I think that's so important for people to hear. Mm-hmm. Like, that's not always available to people.
Right. And how fascinating to me that you got your essentially calling while you were trying to finish healing from cancer, not expecting to find a calling, I presume, not expecting to find a complete new path.
No.
Oh my gosh. I love plant medicines for that reason. I've done ayahuasca twice.
Okay.
It never hit me with a calling, but it has certainly been the beginning of the facilitator that started to rip away my soul's deep inherent depression that was relatively inexplicable, of why I was just sad and didn't want to be here all the time. And once it started scraping away that, so that I'm not fighting that every day, it really makes you start to think, what's going on here? Mm-hmm. I've been in talk therapy since I was 8 years old. Yeah, obviously that didn't work. So it got me to a level of functionality, especially with medication. But when you start to remove that, what else can we be doing? And it's not, like you said, it's not a person to follow on social media. Sure, they can give us ideas that send us in better directions. And by all means, if that's the fix for someone, congratulations. Like, I'm so happy for you. But I think there's a lot of people who have deeper problems that aren't fixed with talk.
And that is what got me into somatics. When I started getting into this breath work and understanding, like, meeting people also, like, similar to you, that have been in therapy which therapy is beautiful. It's so important.
Start there.
Yes. Yes. And I think both are equally, like, valuable, but what people forget and what I didn't realize until these last years, until I started studying what the breath was actually doing on a nervous system level. I got fascinated with the nervous system because, if anyone listening knows about, like, the body keeps the score and the body remembers all these phrases. It's like that you cannot, it's like we're all waiting for the body to catch up to what the mind is already knows.
Yep.
For example, like you cut your hand, and in the moment your mind's like freaking out. It's like, ow, this is painful. And then your mind gets over it. But weeks later, your body's still healing. Mm-hmm. And so it's the same thing with a relationship, like your mind has maybe forgiven the person or has finally come to completion, but maybe your body is still moving through a level of grief.
Yeah.
And unfortunately and fortunately, it's not up to us to decide when our body heals. Our body is on the journey. Mm-hmm. And so when we go through these things like talk therapy, it's great. And it also needs a complementary modality for the body. Our nervous system needs to move through these tensions and contractions. And, when you speak about depression as well, it's like you can't outthink your depression.
No.
I'm sure you know.
Yeah, it's pretty impossible.
Yeah.
Yeah, you definitely can. So I'm a massage therapist and energy healer at home. So I work with people's bodies, and what I find I'm most passionate about right now is trauma release in people's bodies. Because I had surgery in January, and I had my fallopian tubes removed so that I will never have kids because I don't want them. And that was a wonderful practice. Again, for me, having had other things in the past that I've worked out, physical trauma that got stuck in my body. But again, to see it cut through my ab muscles and cut through my abdomen and remove part of my female reproductive system, part of what makes me uniquely female, has been an interesting journey. And getting the massage work, because surgery is major trauma to the body.
Huge.
Just because you're asleep and you don't feel it doesn't mean your body's not going through something majorly traumatic.
Huge.
And it was even surprising for me to see how long that pain lasted. I got my first body work on me about a week and a half after the surgery, and it was so powerful, that the energy that she just lightly moved, and the energy healing, and that I was blacking out when I tried to get up, and I couldn't get up for 45 minutes, and I ended up vomiting and purging finally the last of what came out. So it sounds really gnarly, but she did a phenomenal job. I mean, we were to the point where I'd walked over, it was Leah I keep referencing. Walked over to Leah's house, and she did the body work and healing on me, but she was going to have to drive me home. Like I couldn't even walk. And then as soon as I purged, I was fine. I was like, oh, now I can walk home, Yeah. And I was off the rest of the day, but the next day I woke up like 10 steps ahead. And I thought for sure we had gone 50 steps backwards. And I've spent time working out. I had a bad snowboard injury maybe 4 years ago, where I went to gap onto a metal rail, and I missed the gap, and I ate the whole rail to my face. Like my goggles broke my fall, and I got knocked out, and I woke up to my then would become boyfriend standing over me, like, are you okay? Shutting down the rail. And but the goggles had impacted my face so hard. I had bruising. I got a black eye. I had to get stitches, and my nose was bleeding. And for months afterwards, I was rubbing trauma out of my face. And it was crazy because, you don't even think to rub trauma out of your injuries. Most people don't. And it was something I was starting to play with at the time. I wasn't even a massage therapist yet. Oh, maybe I was. No, I wasn't.
You kind of intuitively knew.
Yeah, and I had started to hear about it. I was already sort of in the metaphysical world. I was already meditating. I was already developing my intuition and psychic abilities. And I was already playing with the elements of the earth and exploring witchcraft. And so I was like, I've been reading about this. Let me just try. And this sobbing, and when I would push on the things, the flashes of what happened that would immediately come back were just so groundbreaking to me that that's what I'm really passionate about now with massage and energy work is trauma release.
Wow.
Stuck in the body. So
what kind of massage?
I would say I specialize in intuitive deep tissue.
Okay.
Yeah, with a lot of energy healing
on
top of it.
So I'm sure with some of your clients, you have those emotions come up. Yeah.
I mean, I had one that was in a bombing, and he forgot actually when I was working on his leg, and I hit something. He's like, what was that? I was like, oh yeah, like, traumas and emotions can get stuck in the body. And he'd already been hailing me as like his shaman at this point. I was like, I'm really not a shaman yet. He's like, my spiritual guide, whatever you want to call you, you're it. And I got there, and he starts sobbing. He's like, what is happening to me? What is happening to me? And I was like, it clearly is something that happened. Like, you don't have to remember it now. And he called me the next day, and he's like, I remembered what it was. I was in like the Boston Marathon bombing.
Oh.
And he's like, that was all that, oh my God. And just some of that had been stuck there that never came out. So it's really incredible work, both on the physical touching level, on the breath level. And yeah. And it's such important work too.
That we can continue to move through our stuck patternings. So that the people, not just for the next generation, because if you don't, whether or not you choose to have kids or not, but for the people around us too. Like, people can feel when they're around people that are regulated and move through their things, And I'm not saying that a person that's moved through their trauma is better than the next, or the person that hasn't, but it's like, we crave safety. And so to be around like someone that has a regulated nervous system and that can move through their things is create safety for each other. And that's really what we need more of in this modern day world.
Right. Do people often compliment you on feeling calm in your presence and like
I literally walked into a restaurant a couple days ago and had an older man come up to me and look at me and say, and he actually called me regulated. He said, we didn't even speak. Just, I walked in the restaurant and he comes up to my table and he's like, I just want you to know that you feel so regulated and calm and peaceful. And I can feel it in my body. And I could tell he's a meditator as well and is aware of that. But that's the first time I've had somebody say, you're regulated. And I was like, yes, I'm regulated. But yeah, again, like we move in and out of dysregulation and regulation. So it's not like this, enlightenment where I finally gotten there. I'm regulated now. It's like I am constantly moving through my stuff all the time.
Right.
And it's like, the nervous system is malleable. And so it's not to get it to a certain level, but to make sure it's adaptable and flexible and resilient. And it can bounce back when it dysregulates.
Right.
Definitely not always regulated. For sure.
And I think one of the things I like to remind people of too is even once you hit these better regulated states, we're still living. Like we're still going through things. There's still people that leave our lives. There's still major life changes that happen. There's still hurting yourself. There's still
we're still human.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the work is never truly done.
Nope.
Which is beautiful. You just start to acquire more of these tools in your toolkit that give you the capacity to deal with things.
Yeah. Expand our capacity to be with all of the human experience. Not to be in one state the whole time. Yeah, let's be fluid. Yeah. Let's flow like the water. Yeah. That was something I spoke with my psychic earlier today. And one of the things she mentioned was she's like, she always sees me surrounded by water, but with this future vision especially, she's like, no, it's you doing this thing, but you're surrounded by water and the water's really flowing. So I think you need to keep in mind that whatever comes to you should be fluid. We were talking about how I got banned off TikTok within 2 weeks of joining for the one video I posted, which said shit in it, apparently. So watch out. TikTok is G-rated, and I'm never going to fit in. And she's like, girl, you need to get off TikTok. That should have been your sign. Don't cuss on TikTok.
Yeah, but you said something earlier during our breathwork ceremony about the water and fluid and flow, and I was like, I love this element.
Yeah.
So what is a breathwork session like?
You tell me.
I know mine are a little untraditional, so I think you should tell me first what most of your clients typically experience, and then I would love to share, because I'm so excited to share about mine.
Yeah, I really want to hear too. Yeah, so I was trained with Sacred Breath Academy.
Okay.
And the founder, her name is Kaya Lay, and I looked at a lot of trainings, and I chose this one because it's trauma informed, which is really important to me.
And what does that mean to someone who has no idea?
Yeah, trauma informed. So there's trauma aware,
okay,
which means that you are aware that people have a trauma in their body. And when I'm saying trauma, I don't just mean big T trauma. I'm also talking about little t trauma, which is trauma is not the event that happened to you. It is how your nervous system perceived the event. So it's not, a lot of people think but I wasn't, raped, or I wasn't physically abused, or I didn't go to war. And big T trauma, or, I didn't have surgery like that. Right. Mm-hmm. But 99% of us are walking around with some form of trauma, whether it's little t or big T. You know, we are human. If you're a human living in society, we are constantly, our nervous systems are constantly being thrown off kilter and dysregulated, and it's anything that impacts your nervous system in a way they define trauma as something that was too much, that happened too fast in too short of amount of time, or something that was too little over a long period of time. Ooh. So for example, something with a parent. Mm-hmm. If you weren't receiving some kind of important contact with a parent over a large amount of time, that can lead to complex trauma, which is something that isn't a one-time event. It happens over and over and over again. Right. Or with a partner. So trauma-informed is really understanding, and I think this is kind of the next wave of quote-unquote healers or coaches. I think this is going to be like an absolute mandatory thing for more and more people to be trauma informed. Because as you know, it's the only way we can really move through and shift our behaviors as well. So yeah, trauma informed is really understanding how to recognize trauma in someone, and also you can still work with someone, but you're not working on the trauma per se. So there's people that are like therapists, or people that are qualified to work on the trauma. I'm not working on people's trauma, but I am informed in a way where I know if someone has a trigger that comes up in a breath session or in a somatic session with me, I know how to move through it with them in a way that's not going to re-traumatize them. And I think that happens a lot in, this is a side note, but I feel like it's so important in plant medicine ceremonies, in any kind of medicine ceremony, even in like traditional coaching. Nobody really is informed about what trauma is and how to not re-traumatize people. A lot of us are going around calling ourselves healers and coaches, and we're re-triggering things in people's nervous systems. It's just not helpful at all. And we're calling it like shadow work, or, we're calling it, I'm triggering them because it's what they need. No, not always. So that's kind of what trauma informed means. It's knowing how to work with it, but not necessarily you need to work on it with that person.
I love that differentiation, and I think you bring up a great point about people who do go and poke at the traumas, and then the body doesn't know whether what you're living through as emotions are happening now or if they happened in the past. Our bodies don't differentiate that at all. So even when you have a memory about something painful, you're triggering your body to relive it again. And in these traumatic instances, you're triggering trauma to relive in the body again and again. So to have that greater awareness sounds incredibly beneficial. And I think you're right. Something that all healers, all therapists, all shamans should be moving towards in the future.
Yeah. All people, really, just to understand, I see, because now it's like, when you see something, you can't unsee it. And so to be able to see people now through a trauma-informed lens and to have that understanding has made me even more compassionate and understanding and mindful of when someone's acting in a specific way. I'm like, okay, I see it through the lens of trauma versus what's happening, or confusion, or taking it personally.
Right.
That's a big one.
It's never about us.
No, it's never. It's never about them. Us. Gosh. So back to the breath training though. That was really important for me. And also I didn't know a ton about the nervous system at the time, but when I was reading the page in the training about the nervous system, it was just like, this is so important. I mean, a lot of breathwork trainings and modalities use mouth inhale, which is, Wim Hof, for example, I don't think he really he says it doesn't really matter where you breathe in,
It's arguable across beliefs.
Which to some extent, it depends on what your intention is and what you're looking for. But as I said in the very beginning, we really only can truly heal when our bodies feel safe enough to do so. And so by breathing through the nose, like the modality that I use and the method that I used with you today, it allows our body to drop into safety versus shooting off somewhere, or we're more dropping in and descending into the body versus ascending and shooting out somewhere.
Right. And it's a similar practice that they implement in sports. If you're not athletic, that is the fastest way to calm the body down once you've hit maximum capacity, is to start breathing in through the nose, out through the mouth.
Yeah.
So just to bring that down, since I try to be mind, body, spirit on this podcast, and I don't expect everyone to be at every level.
Yeah.
But that's just like a beginner baby body work when you're doing sports, is in through the nose. So I can understand how it creates that safety. And so then we're breathing in through the nose and out through the mouth. Walk me through the rest.
Yeah, you're basically doing that for deep belly breath, because that's also activating the vagus nerve and the breath of relaxation. So anytime you're feeling anxious or overwhelmed, taking a few belly breaths in through the nose, out through the mouth, engaging your diaphragm is going to be so helpful for your nervous system and really regulating So yeah, it's funny because, as I said today, it's really, we're reteaching our bodies how to breathe. This is how we come out of the womb, breathing. And we just forget over the years because we armor our bodies and we lock down because, oh, I couldn't feel this and I couldn't express this in that moment. So it's a radical reopening the way we breathe in this journey of the body, and a real unwinding of the body's contractions and tensions, which we're gathering tensions every day. Again, if you live in modern society, like it's a natural thing.
Right.
But over time we get better and our nervous system becomes more flexible at moving through those tensions, and it doesn't hold on to it for so long, eventually becoming disease and cancer and, a heart attack down the road.
Right.
So we're breathing in this way for a circular breath. So it's a form of conscious connected breath, which some of you may be familiar. And if you're not, that simply means we're eliminating the pause between breaths. So we're breathing in, circular. And what that does, why we do that, is because it shifts the brainwave. And that's when things get super juicy, when we go into the subconscious and we're not trying to approach our healing from a conscious level, because the subconscious is where the stuff lives. It's where 95, I think neuroscience is coming out and saying that 95% of our behaviors and our actions and our thoughts come from our subconscious, yet most of us are working with the conscious. And so, shifting the brainwave.
It's really powerful stuff. So I did a breathwork session with you today.
Yeah, you did.
And you are the only person I've actually ever done breathwork with.
Cool.
So I haven't cheated on you since last year.
I give you permission. You can cheat.
I figured you would. And last year, my session with you was very powerful, and I understood different from what most people experience. It's my understanding many people experience trauma release and sort of ridding of things stuck in the body.
Can I make not an adjustment, but just say something about what you just said?
Yeah.
When you say ridding, it's more of a integrating. Because I really believe this, people come to the breath journeys and they're like, I'm ready to let go of this. I'm ready to fix this. And that is not at all what we're doing in these journeys. We are integrating things that our body wasn't able to process.
Yeah. Great terminology shift. Great vocabulary shift.
Yeah.
Because you're absolutely right. When you learn how to live with the things that have happened, you're never going to get rid of them completely.
Yeah.
So my journey so far, I've done a lot of that up until the point last year. I've done a lot of that, even more of it than last year. So my breathwork journeys have been different. And I will specifically focus on the one we just had.
Yes.
Which was pretty crazy for me. Sometimes I can't believe this life is real. So you started before we did the breath work with this beautiful blessing of the elements and the directions, northeast, southwest. And I really took those in, and I really took those to heart. And I have like a healing breath that I did with each one that was very powerful. And we also went to the cosmos and to the earth. And so,
the heart.
Oh yeah, the heart. That's what it was. So when we laid down and started, and it was just me and another girl, we were in a semi-private with you. And I always show up to the table thinking I'm really bad at this. Like, I'm really bad at the breath. Like, the first time we did it, I think you spent like 10 minutes with me helping me figure out the breath pattern. And today you kind of watched me for like a minute. You're like, cool, you got it. And I was like, uh-oh. So when I started, I was like, oh no, I'm really bad at this. How do I be better at this? Be better at this. So I had a lot going on in my head about be better at this or you're not going to have an experience. And then I was like, but if you don't have an experience, that's okay too. And you have the most wonderful playlists, and my journeys usually go to the music.
Yeah.
So as I started breathing in, I finally start, my hands are notorious for going like this. They kind of claw up.
Yeah, that tetany.
They look like lobster claws. They just start to lock up with all that oxygen in the body. And the first one, I'm like, oh gosh, I'm not good at this. I'm not where I should be. You're judging this too much. Just breathe. And all of a sudden, there was my spirit guide. He was this Native American. He's actually Mayan. I always thought he was Native American, but it turns out he's much more from here.
And makes sense why you feel so called to here.
Yeah, that was something I discovered last year here. So I give up. Guatemala, it's my home. You own my spirit, my heart. And he was smoking his little tobacco and he blew it in my face and he's like, let go, mija. And he always calls me mija. And I was like, oh. And he was there with the earth and he was representing the earth element. And so that was when I first started to cry and to really let go of some things that were stuck and feeling that. And I've been crying since I've been here. When I first got here to Guatemala the other day, I just got to my cabin and sobbed. This place triggers release for me. So then I'm crying and I'm feeling this earth, this very strong calling with earth. And then the song changes and I kind of bring my breath back to the breath. So also what happens is you focus on the breath, the filling of the belly, to the up, to the out. And then when you have an experience, you kind of stray from the breath to have the experience. And once that experience starts to be more wind down, then you come back to the breath. So new song, I'm more wrapping up that experience, coming back to the breath. Oh, another thing he said to me was when he said you have to let go, and he said open up like the peacock. And so now I'm opening up like a peacock, which is one of my things that's on brand for me is Barrett, is shades of peacock. So it was very funny to me that he said that. But then as we go into the next song, everything's blue all of a sudden. And there's these 3 women singing at me, which I recall there were women singing, but they were blue. And then I realized we're doing water and they're sirens. And then they triggered this beautiful water dance from within me, doing hand gestures and things. Thank you. Sometimes I wish I could be like, man, just tell Bishop to like film me. I want to see what I'm doing.
I actually would have if I had asked you before I wanted to.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm not going to do that without their permission.
You always have my permission.
Okay, cool.
For the record, moving forward. So I was like, that would be cool to like integrate too, but shit, we didn't talk about it.
Yeah, it was beautiful.
So now I'm doing this beautiful water dance thing, and these sirens, mermaids, they're there, and having this beautiful connection then to the element of water. And I'm still running thoughts in my head sometimes because that's what we do.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, God, is this like an elemental thing now all of a sudden? Am I doing elements? And I was like, stop judging it. Just let it be what it is. And so that was just so beautiful. And then the song ended and I come back to the breath. And I do the next one. And I'm now in my head like, which element is this? And I'm like, stop judging your experience. And but all I'm seeing is the Grand Canyon and wind blowing through the canyons. And I'm like, are we doing wind or is this fire? Are we doing wind or is this fire? Was I wrong about the first? It doesn't matter. But that was really all that happened for me on that one, was just Grand Canyons and wind. And then I get to the next one and everything's like red and orange. And there's another there that's lit with the fury of fire, like the passion of fire, and channels me through a passion fire thing. And I'm like, okay, that was definitely air, so this is definitely fire. And I was like, I got to do all the elements. This is so cool. This is so beautiful. Thank you. I'm so grateful for this experience. I had, very different from my last one.
Yeah.
And so something else was channeled through fire, and all I remember really is just lots of movement that was different and having that connection to the element. And then we get to the next one and I was like, shit, I'm all out of elements, but I don't want to say because my blindfold had come off during the fire dance, but I decided to leave it off for the next one. And regardless, everything was white. And all of a sudden, all these little white circles came around the peripheral of my vision. And I was like, this is cool. I'll take this. What are we doing? And I started to feel this like presence behind me of an angel. And the angels said, you know, we are now going to empower you to be of servitude, to be able to heal stronger, to help make, I mean, it's my life goal to help perform miracles. And really a miracle is just getting the energy blockages out of the way so that the person can heal themselves. But
always,
to be able to have that stronger force. And he's sent this incredible stream, like download into the crown of my head that was literally painful. And it sent me arching backwards on my, like almost on the tip of my head again, because that happened during my first breathwork session with you.
Yep.
And I'm like arched back, and I literally all I could do is like open my arms wide like a cross and just receive this insane download that just brought me to tears as I committed to servitude, and as I was grateful to be of this service to the consciousness and to it's giving me goosebumps. And then I started sobbing because it was such a beautiful and such an impactful experience, as this is what I've moved towards dedicating my entire life to. Yeah, so that was when I truly was just sobbing with gratitude and sobbing with love and sobbing to respect that energy and to continue utilizing it for the greater good. And then that song ended. And then I was like, oh my God, I don't know where we go from here. There was like another song. I was like, I don't know where we go from here. And I started to like return my breath, and thank God you tapped in and were like, now we're going to start slowing the breath. And I was like, oh, thank God. And I just started laughing. I started uncontrollably laughing because I couldn't believe that this was my life. And I couldn't believe that this was what I got to experience in breathwork. And I was so grateful for the whole experience. And I was so happy and so thrilled and so over the moon that like I just couldn't even contain it all.
Yeah.
And I laughed my butt. And I didn't want to like ruin the other girls' experience a little bit. You know, I was like, oh, you had us make sounds and stuff at one point too.
Yeah.
I realized
Somatic permission for that. Yeah.
I know I should have done it into the pillow. Was I supposed to do it into the pillow? I didn't do it into the pillow.
Neither one of you did.
Okay.
That was great. It was fun. You had the whole hall. But you sang.
Yeah.
Which was so beautiful. It was like this voice opening. Was that when the water element was happening?
No, it was after all of the elements. And
you just busted out this beautiful note. It was like it was almost like Little Mermaid, where she's like, ah, ah, and I was in tears. Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was like so compelled by the track that was playing. It was somewhere between like the last element and the laughing. So I don't know if it was before it must have been before the conscious download, because
it was.
Yeah, okay. So it was after fire.
Mm-hmm.
And
I know what song it was. I'll send you the song.
Okay, yeah, please.
Yeah.
And then it was like, oh shit, what's happening? It was cool. It was cool. So I had, this large burst of sound in alignment with what I was going through. And then all the laughter was just unreal, because I was just so grateful for everything that I had just experienced, and so grateful to be here and to be doing breathwork with you and to be at this retreat again in my favorite place on earth, having these moments. And just I was so grateful for more downloads to be able to open me up every time I come here.
You know, that's the part. Thank you so much for going into that, because I think that's so important for people to also hear that these, like, healing doesn't have to be incredibly fucking painful all the time. Like, it can also be spurts of like deep laughter and deep gratitude. And when we do move through the trauma and the stuck tensions that we don't ever fully, we're always moving through them. But when we get more comfortable moving through them, we start to open to these things outside of our outside of ourselves and inside of ourselves that we weren't privy to before.
Absolutely.
Like this, of these like messages and these things that in our day-to-day life we can't quite connect with because it's like that survival and thrive. And I mean it's pretty like, you know, cliche, but it's true. It's like once we move through that survival energy, we really are here to thrive and to be so connected to the earth and these energies around us that we can't see.
Yep.
We're just too traumatized.
We're all just walking around kind of fucked up and like, hoping for better, but not doing the work to make things better.
Yeah.
You know, I had some tough times personally, maybe like 2 weeks before I came here. And for me now, tough times really are just like, I don't have as much money as I need. Yeah. And everything else is pretty good now. But it was so tough and I felt so challenged that I was just falling to like spurts of laughter. If anyone got me talking about what was going on, I would just be like, it's so fucked up. You won't even believe it. You won't even believe it. I was just like losing. My friends were like, okay, you're losing it. I was like, but you know what? At least I'm losing it with laughter now as opposed to some of the other modalities. Yeah. Which is a beautiful place to have worked to have gotten here. But I think we do often think that release must be tears. It doesn't have to be tears. Mm-mm. That was my favorite thing I've learned from plant medicine ceremonies is purging in all of its forms, which is crying, it's movement, it's burping, it's laughing,
screaming, being sacred rage as well.
Yeah.
Joy, all of it. It gets to be all of it.
Right.
The full spectrum.
So why not do it all? Oh, it's vomiting. It's also vomiting,
it
especially
is
in
vomiting.
ayahuasca.
And combo.
And I've had it sometimes on mushrooms.
Yeah, that's true.
So it's a great ride.
It's a great ride.
But it's nice now too to be like, oh, I feel ill. Oh God, I can't wait to be ill. I can't wait to purge that thing that is like so deeply stuck that the only way for it out is vomit.
Yeah.
And that was what happened on my massage after my surgery was the trauma that was stuck, the trauma around the removal of the female organ. Like the only way for it out now that we did that work was vomit.
Yeah.
I've never had that happen from a massage before. Massage and energy healing session, you know, so.
Your body knows how to release. We just have to give it the space to let it. Like you said, nobody's ever healed anybody. It's these healers and the work that you and I do. We're not healing anybody. We're creating a space for people to get out of their own way so they can heal themselves, which is so empowering. Yeah. Right.
I mean, once you realize you're your best healer, you are the only one that can really heal you.
Yeah.
Well, shit. Let's just start shifting our mindsets. Yeah. Let's get Joe Dispenza on everybody. Like, let's figure out how to tell our bodies how to do what we need them to do. Mm-hmm. And
or
get
listen,
out of the way.
Listen to what they're already asking for. Yes. I just want to say, Barrett, I really honor you for this journey of, you know, from depression to opening to your fullness, you know. And not to say if you did experience depression again, which we can have feelings of depression, doesn't mean we're we're diseased or with depression, you know, or fallen ill to depression. But I just wanted to say that that's a huge like journey of moving from that basically suffocating our life force because we feel that we can't handle it to I am all of this. And like that gratitude and that laughter. And I also want to say, when you mentioned in your journey of having that spirit come in, like I literally could feel like my whole body was in chills when you were also, and with the other participant as well. Like I felt like something was in the room, and I just went like I opened up my hands. If you're watching this, if you can see this, I opened up my hands to also receive it because I felt so deeply like something's here and I don't know what it is, but I'm just gonna receive. And that's a big part of the healing work through breath, through plant medicine, through massage. It's opening our bodies enough to receive and to trust ourselves again.
Yes. Yeah, that was a cool experience too. That was my first time, since I've only done breathwork twice, that was my first time doing breathwork with someone else present. And that had its own beauty and joy to it compared to being on my own journey and only having to worry about my own things. You know, sometimes I could hear hers, and I could, essentially what you were describing, I could feel something in the room with us that was, her journey was mildly important to my journey. And what I could hear over there would mildly sometimes influence mine or give me permission or give me a push. Which was probably also why I didn't want to like negate her journey by laughing so hard out loud. But my whole body was embodying the laughter. I was like, just keep the vocals minimal on that, because let's be mindful. Like, I'm having a fantastic time, and I can be in control of this while she is having a sobbing moment over there. Yeah. But that was pretty cool. I mean, what are the largest groups you've facilitated?
I think in a retreat recently, there were 15,
wow.
I want to say.
Oh my God.
Which was it was also here on Atitlan, and it was for a friend's retreat, and it was so beautiful.
Wow.
So beautiful.
What is that like when you have 15 people going on 15 different journeys, moving through 15...
It was incredible. It's so humbling, like every single time, from this journey that the two of you had today to one person sometimes I do online sessions as well, to one person online to 15 in a retreat. Like every single time, I never get used to this work. Like it always blows me away. I'm always sitting there. It's never boring. I'm always sitting there in just complete awe of the human experience. Like, oh my God, this is in breath. Like nobody took anything. Nobody took substances.
No, and I love my substances, as you guys learn on this podcast. Like, I love them.
Tools, great tools, but so cool that breath can also get us there.
Yeah. Can I ask, what was one of your most impactful sessions that you had with breath?
Yeah. Probably my very first one, which I got extreme tetany, which...
So there's a term for that.
Yeah, we keep saying tetany. It's basically when, if you've ever done breath work before, you might notice like your hands curl up and get really tight. They call it lobster claws, as Barrett was describing, and your neck might feel really tight, and your jaw might start to lock up, and maybe your feet curl, and it's really just when we're bringing all of this oxygen into the body, and we are decreasing carbon dioxide through circular breath, so oxygenating and decreasing carbon dioxide. These areas of tension get really magnified in usually the extremities of the hands or the jaw or the shoulders for people. And it's usually followed by a really profound sense of lightness. And so when I got tetany, I felt like I was nailed to the floor. Like my knees, my ankles, my wrists, and my elbows, like all of these points on my body were just nailed to the floor like this, like I was in a cross.
Wow. And
I felt this kind of like, I want to say like this Jesus like archetype of like being nailed to a cross.
Yeah.
And I felt like I couldn't move. I was pinned. And I remember this message coming through at like the end of the tetany when my body started to lighten up a little bit. And it said, "You are not here to save anyone." And then it just kept saying, "You are not here to save anyone. You are not here to save anyone."
You get very insistent messages.
Yeah, it's like a very firm love, you know? Yeah. It's like something I really need to hear. I was like, slap in the face. You're not here to save anyone. And then it turned around and said, "And you are also not here to be saved. You don't need saving." and then I just started like deep grief. And I don't even want to say it was anything about anything, because often in these sessions, our mind, you know, like you said, your mind started to come in and try to understand it, and you're just like, Barrett, return to the breath. It's that training, that like focus of like, come back.
Yeah.
And in that moment, my mind just kind of let go, and it was like, yeah, you're not here to be saved, and you're not here to save anyone, and just this deep grief in my body. No story. No, I'm sad about this. It was just deep guttural grief coming from my lower belly, and feeling like, and that was. It sounds really simple, but it was one of the most profound moments of my life, because everything I've done with friends, with parents, with work, I felt this, and I'm definitely, no, I'm not the only one here, but like feeling this weight of the world. Like, have you ever felt like you're carrying this weight of like, I've got to do something, like I'm here to make it better and change the world? And I think a lot of us that are attracted to this work carry that weight of like, I've got to do something. When in that journey, it was this permission from, it felt like God or divinity to be like, guess what? It's okay.
It's absolutely okay.
It's all actually, like, this might be really triggering to hear for some people because it doesn't feel like it, but it's all perfect. That message came in as well, and to trust the suffering as well. And that's still so hard for me, like, just especially in Guatemala as well. Like, when there is so much like poverty in your face every day. You can't look away from it.
Yep.
But there's also so much joy, you know, with these farmers, and they're so welcoming and warming. And yeah, I'm getting sidetracked, but it's just this message of trust the suffering. And that has I've carried that with me into my work, and I don't think I would be able to do what I'm doing if I hadn't had that experience, because people do come with a lot of suffering. And if we're constantly feeling like we need to fix it and solve it and shift it, like, first of all, that's a lot of stress and drain on us, and we don't have the energy to continue.
Exactly.
And we don't let people know that actually you've got yourself. I trust that, and people can feel that.
I think you're totally onto the fact that, especially becoming a facilitator, or where what we're doing turns into an occupation, the amount of shit we've gone through and had to heal from, and had to overcome, and had to figure out how to integrate and heal all of it, to be able to continue walking, not just to continue walking, but to continue walking with grace and with gratitude, and to again hold love in our hearts in a more bountiful way than ever before. It's like the path that we have to walk. Then we become, I think, like a beacon of hope for some people. Or I don't really want to be anyone's beacon of hope, but like, I desire to share what I've overcome with people, to help them see maybe a light at the end of the tunnel of like, wait, you felt what, and you overcame, you're you now, no way. And I have some friends close to me who have said in the last couple of years, my shift is so dramatic that if they hadn't seen it themselves, they wouldn't believe me. And that they hope that now for some other people in their lives. And I'm like, I hope that for them too. I don't know if that person's if it's part of their path, but it is all possible.
Yeah.
And it's just a matter of finding the tool that speaks to you. And then you start to want to desire more tools, because not every tool is the right tool for the job. And that's really beautiful to then start to walk this path and heal ourselves and help other people on that journey of healing.
And not just to walk this path, but to feel like we're walking more freely. You know, because we're all walking a path, but it's like most of us feel like we're maybe walking with chains. And yeah, I've been there too, like, for sure. And there's so much of that in the world.
Yes. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for this. So how can my audience keep up with you? What's the best way to follow you, to stay in touch?
Yeah, I think for now, Instagram.
Okay. Your Instagram is @Bishop Reid.
Yeah, Bishop Reid.
Awesome.
That's where I'm at.
And if someone would like to book a session with you, she's available to work with you anywhere in the world.
I am. Well, since I'm running a retreat center at the moment, I don't really have any space. I have my one-to-one clients for right now, but my big like experience that I offer is a group course, an 8-week group course that's a breath and somatic course that really is about denumbing and coming back to the feeling body in a safe way. We do journey through breath in that space. So that's my main one. And but yeah, you can go also onto my Instagram or on my website, bishopreid.com, and I have been trying to offer at least a breathwork journey a month online so that people can start to get a taste of it.
Cool.
And usually either on the new moon or the full moon.
Perfect.
So yeah, you can keep an eye out for that and kind of get a taste of the work.
Fantastic.
Or come to Atitlan and have an in-person journey.
Come here. I mean, I want to share this with all of you, / also keep it a secret.
Yeah.
But I want to share this with
same,
all of you,
actually.
/ also keep it a secret.
Yeah, it's so special.
It is so special. Well, thank you so much for your time and for the breathwork session, and
thank you for having me.
For holding my favorite space.
Yeah. And thank you for giving yourself that space.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Let's cut. Thanks so much for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe and review this podcast wherever you're listening. I'm so grateful to have you on this journey with me. Until next time.